are never far away from a screen. It's just a fact of life. In many cases, of course, it's not a bad thing, but there is a downside to young minds having access to the internet, and that, in a nutshell, is pornography. Exposure to sexual images can only be a click of the mouse away. Brisbane sexologist Liz Walker is in New Zealand talking to educators about just what that is doing to young minds, and she joins me now. Liz, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in. This is such an interesting topic, and we really don't know where it goes because of it's only been, what, a decade, really, that pornography has just been this easy to access.
Well, really, since smartphones. So you're talking 2008, 2010, and since then, more and more kids have had access to that. So, it's not just the computer, it's what they've got in their hands.
Do we know what it does, what access to extreme pornography in some cases at a very early age can actually do negatively to children?
Look, we know that there is a rise on problem sexualised behaviours amongst children and sexually abusive behaviours towards other children. So what we know is a high percentile, 67% roughly of young girls and 73% of young boys who are showing problem sexualised behaviours that's due to pornography. So high percentages there, but we don't know how many children are displaying problem sexualised behaviours, and that's one thing that's really hard to measure. Often schools write as usual child play. When it's not, it's mimicking what they've seen.
So it is essential for people, parents in particular, to be able to understand the sort of behaviours that might be warning signs that your children are accessing pornography.
Exactly. And even if it's not the parent's child, it's teaching their kids what to do when they're in situations where they're feeling completely uncomfortable.
Do we know how big a problem this is?
No, I don't believe we do. And we certainly haven't given enough attention. There's been a big push for adults' rights to watch pornography, but no push to children's rights to have a safe environment.
And you know what, we instantly we start thinking illegal behaviour and criminal behaviour, but quite often it is, if for want of a better term, it's entirely innocent. Quite often it might be peer pressure, it might be an older sibling just saying, oh, look at this, not realising the danger of exposing someone very young to it.
That's right. And I mean, this week I was contacted by someone who had been married for well over 15 years, I think, and her husband, she'd only just found out, had been watching porn since he was 4. And the impact that's had on their marriage has been devastating. So often we don't think ahead to what impact that has on relationships.
Okay, so much to talk about, and time is against us. From your point of view, you were 6 when you were exposed to graphic porn.
Exactly.
How did that come about?
So I was on a school bus, and it was a magazine with film strips in it, so image after image was just graphic.
And it was just another older pupil that was showing it to you?
Yep. Girl in year 3, I was in year 1.
I mean, are you able to know yourself how negatively you have been affected by that early exposure?
Look, for me, it was a matter of I had no one to talk to. I didn't know how to process that. Did
you know it was wrong, that it wasn't something you could talk to easily about?
Yeah, I got that huge sense of guilt and shame, but also I couldn't tell at 6 that that's adult behaviour, not children's behaviour. I just saw that, human behaviour. That's what you do. So it became part of my play and experimentation with other kids, which I now know is problem sexualised behaviour.
Well, so, and to a degree, here you were infecting other children that perhaps weren't infected by pornography, but innocently because you'd been exposed to it.
That's right, and it's really important that we don't treat children who are, displaying these behaviours as mini sex offenders. They are children who are mimicking what they see, and they need lots of support and education.
And it's a tragic result of stealing the childhood, the magic from children's eyes too, by insisting they grow up too early.
That's right.
Even if in many cases it's accidental. Interestingly enough, these things are linked, apparently experts have linked them, erectile dysfunction is now affecting far more men at a far earlier age than it used to.
Before 40, pre-internet, rates were about 2 to 5%. Post-internet, we're sitting 27 to 33%.
It's extraordinary.
Massive.
And is that just because people who've been exposed to pornography at a very early age need far more extreme things to happen to make them excited?
Yeah, and they're rewiring their brain to what they're seeing on the screen, so they need more and more novel clips to get aroused, and then when they have somebody flesh and blood in front of them,
it's not as much fun,
not as entertaining, not as
stimulating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And for girls, I know one of the issues there is, of course, you meet a boy, and the expectations that are being placed on many young girls now are extreme and hugely offensive. But these boys have been trained over years and years to expect that kind of
And
behaviour.
what we've got to understand is mainstream porn now is hardcore porn. It's gonzo porn. It's where the cameras are really close.
It's unrealistic.
It's abusive. It's so degrading. And so young girls are growing up with this expectation that that's actually what I need to do. And boys wanting that in their relationships.
And as with so much on the internet, just be aware what your kids are watching. That is the number one thing, isn't it?
Exactly. And creating those open conversations.
Yeah. Liz, thank you so much and knowing that this is a real problem. If you have children, it is a real potential problem. Liz Walker, sexologist, thank you very much for joining us. Liz is here in New Zealand, going around the country talking to many people about this, and it is something we need to be aware of. 5 minutes away